Preparing now to stream live. So, how's everyone today? And I would love to hear from you how you're doing. And thank you for saying hello to a chat has already come in as a comment to say hello. Thank you. And I look forward to hearing from you what is preoccupying your mind today so that this session really serves you in the very present moment, as many things are still changing in the world and it will continue to do so. Uh, Perhaps the change is more rapid and more um, far reaching, and we will just have to practice embracing them all in and reducing our fear instead of looking at threats as instead of looking at them as wow, this is not good, is to say wow, this is really impressive how all the different governments are now starting to respond to reducing the threat of COVID-19 and definitely the spread. So look at it in a positive light that governments around the world are all stepping up in unison to respond to the COVID-19 infection. And this is really bringing the world together. Look on the positive side. Pollution is lowest in history of modern times. We actually have blue skies in all parts of the world. We are also having much better quality air. And even the emission of carbon dioxide or monoxide from cars have dropped tremendously. So maybe this is the way the world is recovering itself from the exploits of humans, and take a positive view, a positive perspective will also reduce the stress that we're experiencing, and a negative view would just increase the stress. So always look out for the silver lining of every cloud. Great. I'm glad that you're all tuning in and feeling thankful for this opportunity to connect. We're all connecting with each other as well as connecting with ourselves, to be in touch with how our mind is working and how those thoughts in our mind affect us in the experience that we are living. If we have a positive mindset without all the negative judgment, we will have a more relaxed way of living our life. After all, once we live this moment, it's gone. So, do we want to live with a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, or even anger? Or we can choose instead to live with more calmness, taking a more relaxed approach to life. And after all, we can only affect the change in our immediate world, the people that we interact with, the people who matter uh, in this present moment. We're not in a position, at least for most of us, to be affecting any change that is that far reaching to the other parts of the world. But having said that, if we are not practicing hygiene and not doing our social distancing, we may end up causing adverse impact on the other people who are close to us, because we may be a carrier without knowledge, because not everybody experiences the symptoms. There are people who are asymptomatic, and there are people also who have very minor symptoms. So we may be one of them. We may be a silent carrier. So let's practice kindness towards others by keeping our distance, by washing our hands and not touching our face, because by touching our face or having any of the body fluids from our nose or our eyes could in fact be passing on the COVID-19. So that is one way we can keep practicing kindness, by being responsible. All right. So now let's start with our practice. And again, make sure we adjust our posture, sit up in a comfortable position, checking our lower back. And if you have a cushion, it's always very good to put it on the lower back because it helps the lower back to get some support. If not, just shift your body forward and have your feet touch the ground so that you're giving good support to your lower back. Okay, so place your hands on your lap and just check in with the shoulders first. And let's rotate our shoulders by taking a deep breath and rolling those shoulders forward. Let's do it 3 times. Take a deep breath every time we roll our shoulders back. And then roll it the other way around. Good. And you may sense any tightness or tension. Take note of it. It is an alert to you that there is some stress in the shoulders. Okay, so now let's move our head and turn to the right and then to the left, to the right and left. And dropping our ear to the shoulder and rotate. And then changing direction. And coming back to the center. Closing your eyes and taking 3 beautiful deep breaths. And tuning into the sounds. And some of you may have noticed the barking of a dog. Sounds like thoughts, sensations in the body. They're all transient. They arise and they fall away. So notice all the different sounds around you. Accepting all the sounds that are present. And then letting them go by now shifting your focus from the sounds into your body. And sensing to the body where the tightness, tension may be present. And even the aches or pain. And recognize that even aches or pain or tension, they move around in the body. And sometimes they just disappear. So they too are transient. And even pain or aches feel differently each time. When you apply curiosity, you'll start to understand the sensations in the body much more than just giving it a label. Like for me, I feel this tingling in my right arm. And I accept the tingling sensations. And when I focus on that sensation, I notice how the tingling sensations run up and down my arm. How the intensity varies from one part of the arm to another part of the arm. So whatever the sensation is for you and the location of it in your body, let's apply curiosity towards it. And then breathing into that area. Breathing relaxation into that space where the sensations are felt. It could even be tightness in your chest, tightness in your shoulder, wherever it is. You can place a hand on it and breathe into it, or simply focus on that region and breathe into it. Breathing relaxation into that space. And for me, I can feel the intensity of the tingling sensations reducing as I breathe into it with kindness. Breathing in kindness means I'm not trying to get rid of it in any way. Oh, that's not my intention. I'm breathing in with kindness, meaning that I'm just giving it tender, loving care, respecting the sensation, communicating with me that it wants some tender, loving care and a breath of relaxation. And for me, I can feel the tingling sensations disappearing from most parts of my arm right now. And some tingling sensations now are being felt in my thumb. So continue to just breathe relaxation into that area or areas. And do it with kindness, with acceptance of its presence. And when the sensations have reduced in intensity or it's gone, let it go by shifting the focus now into the breath. And let's hang out with our best friend, the breath. It's our best friend because it is what enables us to stay alive, to have time, to be useful to ourselves and to others. Being useful to ourselves means that we are developing skills like the mindfulness practice, learning to be calm, centered, not to be swept away by our thoughts, be swept away by emotions. And we may notice thoughts arising, accept that these thoughts are present, and then very simply reconnect with this beautiful breath, our best friend. And that's how we let the thoughts go. So every moment is a practice moment. Every moment of focusing on our breath is a useful moment. Because when we are calm, we're centered, we can bring more joy and happiness to the world. We become more useful as we don't become destructive with meanness, with vengeance. And we're no longer vindictive. So focus on our breath with a sense of gratitude, to be reminded how precious this breath is. And there's actually nothing in this world more precious because without this breath, nothing matters anymore. So anytime we're sick, ill, just focus on the breath. Feeling grateful we have the breath. With this breath, we still have time. And our body can still heal. Once the breath is gone, there's no more time. If you're distracted by thoughts, that's okay, it's normal. Just shifting your focus to the breath is the practice of letting go of the thoughts. So always be aware of where your mind is. This is a practice of being awake. Practice of enhancing our mindfulness or awareness. And just dropping into your body now and noticing how the body feels. What is the rate of your breathing? And even your heartbeat. Is your body calmer, less tense, more relaxed? The sense of calmness arises when the body is more relaxed. And notice your mind. Is it still swirling with thoughts? Or are there less thoughts now? How does your breath feel? Is it more shallow? If it is, means you have become a lot calmer. So as I'm practicing with you, you may notice my rate of speaking has also slowed down. And now focusing on 3 more breaths. At the end of the 3rd breath, open your eyes. Okay. So those of you who may have just signed on or signed on a bit late, you can always access the Brahm Center Facebook page to replay this segment or the entire session if you like to refresh the practice or to be reminded what is being said today. And better still, share it with your friends. And that is why the questions that you pose and comments that you make, I no longer mention the name so that your friends wouldn't know that it's come from you. So how is everyone feeling now? I'd love to hear from you to get a sense of what is your state of mind and the state of your body in this moment. And those of you who are on Facebook page, I'm going to try to access your comments from my phone and see if that works. But it would be better if you are signed on to Zoom, as I'm able to interact with you and answer your questions more real time. Okay, thank you for some of your new comments coming in. One of you have said, very good, and another one has said, more calm, need to go, hope to catch up again later. Yes, so with this, you can sign on anytime and sign out anytime. So use the practice, use the opportunity in any way you wish, as long as it helps you. Okay, I'm now checking Facebook page and currently there are 5 comments. Yeah, mainly their comments. Thank you. Wonderful. Thanks for all the comments on Facebook. All right. Need to straighten back as it's loud. Okay, so need to straighten your back as it kind of when slouching. That's okay. That's normal. That means your body is relaxing and allow it to relax. If it relaxes and it starts to slouch, leave it alone because that's the way the body would like to relax. So you don't need to straighten up your back again after you started the mindfulness practice. Okay, so that you can just focus on your breath and keep with the breath. So today I would like to touch on a topic that is probably close to many people's hearts as the economy is diving and many companies' revenues are down, profits therefore are being wiped out, and there may be layoffs in the horizon. And that means some of the jobs would be cut. And in some cases, it may affect you. It may affect you from the perspective of you having to put up a list, or you may be considered to be on the list. We can never be sure. Even if we are doing the cuts, it doesn't mean that our name doesn't go on the list as well, because it has happened before. So I could share with you my experience of having had to do a round of layoff in an organization that I had joined. And I was told that I had to lay off staff. So at first I was informed that I had to give a list, which is a smaller number. And that was actually quite easy to come up with because there were people who were absent from their desks. A lot of times when we're looking for them, we can't find them. So obviously they were skiving or they were off doing other things, which later I found out some of them were doing side businesses, whether they were selling insurance, whether they started a business that they were starting to focus on, or whatever that may be, took their mind away from their work. So when you start to be disappearing from work and people start noticing, and you may also start getting less work assigned to you, that is not a good sign, because it means that people will perceive you as being unreliable. So these people's names got put on the list. And people who used to be absent because of medical reasons, but somehow they tend to fall sick on a Friday or a Monday. And people started to perceive that it was their way of creating long weekends. So these people's names were also the first to be put on the list. And another group of people were those who didn't want to learn new things, who wanted to do their work in the old way and keep doing it in the same way, and not wanting to embrace change, not wanting to adapt and be open to learning even new systems, innovating, not wanting to even improve, forget about innovating. And they were deemed to be coming to a use by date that may be very close or may even have passed by the use by date. So they were also another group of people that were put on the list. And subsequently, I was told we had to add more people on the list because the situation was very bad. The company could not continue to keep so many people on the payroll as the business was doing very badly. So the next group of people that we had to consider putting on the list were those who were negative in nature. They tend to complain, they tend to criticize, and worse, being very cynical. And this affects the positivity and the mood of other people. And this group of people are very powerful in bringing down the morale of others, because in anything that they're in any situation, they can always find the negative side of things. They can become very detrimental to the morale of the organization. Another aspect of this group of people were those who make a lot of mistakes, they're not reliable in meeting deadlines, and worse, they tend to tai chi work off, right? That means push work away to someone else, and even complain when more work is given to them because spending more time at work is not a priority for them. And when they do spend the extra time making the extra effort, they want to make sure that other people know. So this group of people became the third most vulnerable group. And when the cuts got even deeper, so more people were being asked to be put on the list, now it becomes a list that included people who were performing. And so how do we make a decision when people are performing, but there are not enough jobs? So we had to start looking around as to who are the people most dispensable. Meaning that the work that they're doing, it's not that difficult, that if you could train someone else to do the job or to include it into their scope, this person becomes dispensable. And also they are not learning systems or doing the work that is most relevant to the organization in today's time, then they also would be deemed dispensable. And if they are doing jobs that other people could take on without even adding headcount, they become dispensable. And another category would be the job that you're doing, you're being paid much more than the requirements of the job. And sometimes this happens when we have been in an organization for very long and we keep getting increment after increment, but our job hasn't grown to match up with these increments that have been given to us. And then we become in a position that our salary is way beyond what the job is worth. So asking for more salary increases each time may actually result in us becoming dispensable. Because if the company can hire someone at a lower salary, why wouldn't they? Because it's all about cost efficiency. This is no different to you hiring someone to help in your home. Would you pay much more if someone else could do the same job costing much less? So for you to pay much more for someone working in your home, it's because you see the added value that they bring. So we have to then make sure that we have that added value that justifies the greater amount that we're paid. So in some of our cases, if we are vulnerable, it's because of the past actions, our past conduct. As long as the list is not fixed, we have time to change the perception. We have time to decide that we're going to change our attitude, to change the way we work, and be much more open to taking on things that are not usually in our scope, and even to step up to learn new skills, acquire new knowledge. We must always have that thirst for knowledge, thirst to learn more and keep pace with the changes in the world. Then we remain relevant and increase our indispensability. So go to your boss now. Don't just sit and wait for your fate to happen. Go to your boss now and says, "Hey boss, is there anything I could do for you? Is there anything I can help with?" And even if it's outside your job scope, go for it. Because the more you do, the more you learn. And the more positive emotional bank account you build with your boss and the organization. Arguing with your boss is not going to win you points. In fact, if it makes you harder to be managed by your boss, then you become a liability rather than an asset. So some of you may have to make decisions about who has to go on the list. You may feel very bad about it. But being objective and assessing who are the people who are going to help the company rebound is your objective. It's what you're paid to do. Even after laying off people, you can still extend help and support to these people. So I'm writing an article about it, and it's going to be published very soon. So I am going to point to you that article once it's published without being able to say a whole lot more, because the inevitable laying off of people is going to happen. Because there isn't much positive signs in the near horizon that there's going to be a miraculous turn of events, of recovery of the economy. It's not going to be so soon, even if the vaccination or the vaccines are discovered. Because vaccines to be massively produced and massively distributed would require some trials to be conducted to ensure that they're safe. Because if these trials are not sufficiently carried out extensively, it may even bring about harm. So the best thing is for us to be positive, stay relevant, and be proactive in going to your bosses to ask, what else can I do to help the company? That would really put you in a good light and ensure that you don't get on the layoff list. So I hope some of these practical tips and some insights of what I had gone through helps you. Worrying about it is not going to. Being negative about it is not going to. Speculating is not going to be helpful either. So take a positive step today and go to your boss and ask, what else can I do to help the company? So thank you for listening. And if you have questions or comments, I welcome them so that this talk is really going to help you to shift your perspective and focus on what is positive that you can do. So I'm going to check Facebook as well. Okay, I have someone saying looking forward to reading it. Great. Um, Someone mentioned that it is very constructive. Wonderful. Thank you for all this feedback because it gives me the assurance that indeed these sessions are worth your time and they're making a positive difference to your life. So, in whatever we do, be useful, be a positive influence, be a light in the darkness. Thank you for the comment. Although I'm not currently working, I love the practical tips, the reality, and most of all, the lovely energy that you generate. Thank you so much for that kind comment. Okay, has everyone else gone to sleep? That you're so relaxed? Any more comments or any questions? Remember, I won't be mentioning your name, so you don't have to worry about putting a comment forward and your name is mentioned. That won't happen. Thank you. Someone just mentioned, yes, I'm feeling a lot more relaxed. Now, if you feel that you may end up on the list, then focus on your other options in life. Because if it happens, it's happening. And make the best of your time. Looking into how you can be useful to your family members that you may have been ignoring in the past because you're too busy with your work. So now is the time to catch up with the loved ones because their time on earth, on this planet, is also limited. So make good use of your time. Don't look at what you've lost. Look at what now you can gain from having that time of not being at work. Good question here. What if one gets too overwhelmed with work and it affects health? Then you need to respect your own limits. So when I was feeling too tired, because I usually start work at home in the morning, even though I go into the office maybe at 1 because I'm teaching all the way to 9 o'clock, like it is today. I give my body enough rest. And I need to be honest to myself, first of all. How much is it that I can handle? What is the load that I can handle? And not to overdo it because I'm no longer young. I'm now 56. So although I have energy, mental energy, my body may not be able to keep up. So at the Brahm Center, we are all hired on contracts. The reality is there's no such thing as a permanent job. When we're no longer relevant to the organization, there's no permanence. So even I am hired on a contract because my board needs to be assured that, first of all, I'm doing a good job in order to earn my place to remain as the CEO of the organization. And secondly, that I am open to changes because even the board introduced changes that are required for us to step up to because the board of the organization in the charity is responsible for governance. And I cannot act like Brahm Center is mine just because I founded it. This is an organization that serves the community. So Brahm Center has remained relevant to the community. It is not about me. It is about what I can do to serve in Brahm Center to benefit the community. So one day, if I'm no longer relevant because I have decided for some strange reason that I'm not going to adapt, I'm not going to be open to change, I'm not open to feedback, then it is time for the board to replace me. And then I really should move on. So if we want to keep our jobs, no matter who we are, we need to stay relevant, open to feedback, even if the feedback is negative, to look for the positives in the feedback, to see what is it that we can learn and change from that feedback. Instead of judging the feedback, judging the person who gave the feedback, because those judgments are not helpful. They are just going to block our mind from being able to learn. You remember that even Steve Jobs was displaced from Apple, and he created Apple, and he was sacked by the board. So even founders of organizations are not permanent, or should not think that we are permanently placed just because we founded the organization. We have to stay relevant. And we have to also ensure that we're not overpaid, because being overpaid would result in us becoming very dispensable. There's a question here. I'm in Malaysia with a movement control restriction, trying to relax at home with some wholesome activities. How is the COVID management situation in a crowded MRT in Singapore? Well, fortunately, we've had responsible people in traveling in the MRT. So as long as people don't cough and don't sneeze in the MRT, we are managing the risks. And so far, I would say the risk is very low, at least from what we have been able to observe. So I think we should still continue to be able to go about doing whatever we do and making sure that we are responsible people and not wipe our hands in the face and then touch the railings. So as long as we live thinking that we could be infecting people, we would therefore be more responsible. Thank you for that question, Jennifer. Okay, what if one gets too overwhelmed with work and affects our health? I hope I've answered your question. Be respectful to your health and be respectful to your limits. Communicate to your boss. It's not that you don't want to try to do more, but you also need to ensure that your health is preserved in order for you to be able to continue contributing to the organization. Another comment here, really appreciate your authenticity and objectiveness in taking up a sensitive subject, as in the case of layoff. Thank you. Most of us would rather not talk about it because it's a very difficult experience. It was traumatic, even though I wasn't the one laid off and having to lay people off. So I try to do it with kindness, to do it with sensitivity, starting with thanking them for the contributions they've made in the organization. And they've all made contributions. Sometimes it's also the change in how they're being managed and how they've been communicated to that have made them jaded, that have made them feel that they're no longer useful to the organization. So the organization has to have some responsibility as well in being very honest with our direct reports as to what are the things that they need to improve on, instead of trying to gloss over it or trying to hint. It is not helpful. And I learned this when I was young, in my early 30s, when my boss gave me a blistering appraisal. And till today, I am very thankful to him. Because of his blistering appraisals, I was able to wake up to my own weaknesses and flaws and really worked on them. If he had been diplomatic, being kind, that he wasn't even going to be direct about it, I may not even have any clue that how I was working at that time was not helpful or useful to other people. So as a staff, request for a very honest appraisal, because it will pay off in the long term. Instead of being angry at your boss for being so upfront, your boss is actually helping you when he's being honest with you. It is up to you to put aside your emotions of become defensive, this fight and flight mode that you get into. It's to look at the essence, the substance in what is being communicated and make the changes. Because after all, if we are difficult, we make ourselves difficult to manage, our usefulness in the organization is much reduced because we become deemed as high maintenance. And I think we all know we like to we like to manage people who are lower maintenance. Okay, that's great. So now let's just drop into our breath again for the last 10 minutes. And there may be a lot of thoughts being provoked in your mind. There may be even regrets coming up in your mind, whether you didn't give a good appraisal or you didn't give a sufficiently honest appraisal, or even have been more proactive in how you conducted yourself at work. Be accepting of those thoughts. Instead of being angry at yourself, is to forgive yourself, to accept, let go, and come back to the present moment. What are you going to do about it going forward that's really going to be helpful and useful, either to your direct reports or to the people you report to? Okay, so I invite you to close your eyes. Take 3 beautiful deep breaths again. And notice the sensations in the body. If there are any tight, tense sensations in your body, once again, to breathe into it and relax your body. Having a tense body is not helpful. In the long run, it will be adverse to your health. And then when you're ready, shift your focus onto your breath. And you may notice lots of thoughts flying through your mind. And if you don't have, that's wonderful. And if there are thoughts in your mind bubbling up, just observe like an audience in the theater, a spectator. Notice how your thoughts play out in the mind. And be aware if any of these thoughts are invoking an emotion, and if that emotion may be triggering stress in your body. So create the space between you and your thoughts. Create space between you and the emotions. Watch them play out. And just keeping your breath as the anchor. And dropping into your breath. Once again, reminding ourselves that when we have our breath, there's more right than wrong. So even if we have done things that are deemed wrong in the past, you have your breath. That's one right. You have your health. That's another one right. You have your family members. Another one right. You have a roof over your head. Another one right. You're able to eat, breathe. You have your brain, a sound mind. So the list goes on when we start to focus on what we have. And even if we are to lose our job, there are many other doors that will open. And more doors will open if we have a positive mind. A positive mind instead of a blaming mind. A calm mind instead of an angry mind. A kind mind instead of a mean mind. So, in this practice is to develop a calm, kind, and a positive mind. Then there'll be loads of doors opening for us, even in the event we lose our job. If there is any anxiety felt, place your hand on the body area that feels the anxiety. Usually it's on the chest. So you can always place your hand on the chest and breathe into it to center yourself. By breathing into it, you relax that area and you're able to recompose yourself, reducing amount of time, the length of time that you have to stay in this state of anxiousness. This is how we come back to being present. In the present moment, there is nothing happening that is anxious in nature. You're just seated here, doing your practice. If you are truly present, you will taste peace and even a sense of joy of being present in the here and now. Observe if your mind races off to the future, thinking of the worst. That is what's creating the anxiety. So it's not what's happening in the present. It's your mind racing off into the future. Or going back to the past. The past is history. So breathe into that space. What matters now is the present. Focus on what is the positive things that you can do. Taking the positive steps forward. That comes from thinking positively and acting positively now. So breathe in kindness. Breathe in relaxation. And to be grateful, we have our breath. That means we have time. We have time to be useful, time to be kind. And now say 3 times to yourself, may I be well and happy. May I be well and happy. May I be well and happy. And open your eyes and smile. Okay, so we have 5 more minutes. If anyone has any comment or question, welcome to post them. And if you have to go, please do. And once again, stay positive, be kind to yourself and to others.